If you are struggling with shadow work, if you're curious about shadow work, please, baby, don't scroll. In my last video, which I'll link in the playlist, I talked about what shadow work is. Here's how to do it, or at least how I do it. Before we get started, hi, I'm Jackie. I'm a manifestation and spirituality coach. If you want to book a session with me or get one of my workbooks, you can go to my website. I have them on scripting and boundaries and plenty of other things that you might have questions on. Actually, no, it's just those two. But go. buy my shit. Okay, so there's you as you are right now. There's your highest self, which we love to focus on because it feels really good and affirming or whatever. And then there is your shadow self, who we don't like to focus on as much because it feels shameful or scary. There are other parts of yourself, like your inner child, but we'll talk about that later. So how to do shadow work, how to connect with that shadow self. The first step, you're going to get in touch with your shadow self through journaling and meditation. When you are journaling, I want you to set a timer for 10 minutes and literally do not stop writing. Don't let the pen stop writing. You answer the question, what am I most avoiding? While you are meditating, I want you to visualize your shadow self, exactly what they look like. If you need a prompt for this, ask, what am I most ashamed of? Literally visualize your shame or negative self-talk, like whatever you're like, just anything that you hate about yourself. Visualize it as if it were its own person. Mine usually looks like this hyper anxious, like fucking like trembling from head to toe bitch who's drinking like a ton of booze. Once you're sure that you're in touch with your shadow, usually you'll know, ironically, you might go into it thinking that you'll feel really scared to meet this person, but you'll often know that you're in touch with your shadow when you feel pity. You're like, oh dude, you can't live like this. Anyway, so you ask your shadow what it needs. Usually, it'll say things like, tell me I'm secure, but 9 times out of 10, literally all it's asking is for you to accept it. Think of your shadow self as like a kid on a playground and all of these other kids are excluding it. All of these other kids are you, by the way, so you need to get them in check so that they incorporate this little guy. Doesn't want revenge, doesn't want anything, only just wants to be accepted and included. Acceptance, literally just accept it. And for the last step, literally just integrate whatever it needs and check in. If it needs to be told that you are secure, if it needs to go out and have a wild night at the club within reason, if it needs to be accepted, do that and then check in with it periodically, see what it's saying. Hope that helps.
The reason you came to creation. Rise up, oh flame, come join the game. You started a frenzy, but we'll take the blame. A bitch has to tame, goes by no name. Their arsenal's empty, you'll take out his shame. Same old energy, baby. History repeats. Same old energy, baby. They'll march you through the streets. Same old energy, baby.
If you're seeing this, let's do some shadow work together. I'm gonna go grab my shadow work journal and we can choose an exercise to do. Okay. Alright, we're gonna do a fill in the blank exercise. I'm gonna throw some phrases on the screen and you will pause and fill in the blanks. No right or wrong answer, but the words you choose will reveal something deeper inside of you that comes from your shadow. As a child, I was told not to. This made me very... I feel like things would be different if... I just wish I could tell my child self, I understand that I am, but I love myself unconditionally. What did your sentences reveal? A lot of the time, our shadows derive from parts of our childhood and situations where we had to repress parts of ourselves in order to fit the mold. So doing shadow work will help you recover those parts of yourself that you've repressed, help you learn why you've repressed them. Follow for more shadow work.
This is how you actually do shadow work. This is part 2. Firstly, you're going to want to look at your patterns, your triggers, and your projections. Patterns meaning what are you not seeing about you, yourself, or others that's repeating in your life, whether it be your partners, whether it be circumstances, things that just constantly happen. Baby, there's a lesson. What triggers you and where does that come from? And lastly, your projection. How do you present yourself to the world? And most importantly, how are your projections a reflection of your insecurities? Through journaling and reflection, childhood analysis, meaning what was unaccepted of you? What did you have to hide about yourself? What didn't you receive? And what didn't you feel like was enough or whole or even love. This is really transmutation. You're transmuting all of this pain, all of this repression into self-acceptance. And there's also the dark night of the soul, which is something that mostly happens to you, but that's shadow work.
Okay, so we see everyone talking about the benefits of shadow work, but if you're a beginner and you're feeling a little overwhelmed and a little scared, try using these journaling prompts to get started.
Shadow work is when we intentionally uncover and reclaim suppressed parts of ourselves that we have suppressed as a result of either trauma and or because we were taught that these parts were undesirable and we would not be able to receive love, connection, safety, and security if we were to actually show these parts of ourselves. Let's look at a really clear example of this from my own childhood. So I was somebody who was obsessed with reading. I loved the Harry Potter books, and I would get really stressed out at having to play group sports with other kids when I was a lot younger. And there's this one day I went to the beach with my family, my parents, and some other family friends and their kids that were around the same age as us. I brought my Harry Potter book thinking, yes, like beach time, I'm gonna get to read. So we get to the beach, we're all sitting around. I plop down next to all the other parents that, are like sitting in their chairs. All the other kids go and start playing beach volleyball. So I crack open my book, and all of a sudden, all of the other parents, including my parents, are sitting there going, Dana, go play with the other kids. You're at the beach. This is not the place for reading. You should go and play. Kids play when they go to the beach. And I remember my face getting really hot and feeling really embarrassed because I was like, oh, like, am I weird? Is this weird? But I don't want to do that. That doesn't feel good to me. I don't desire to do that. What I actually desire to do is to read. And I remember all of the parents over and over again saying, go play, go play, go play. You can imagine the scenario when you just see a kid that desperately does not want to do that, but all of these adults around this child is saying, go and do that because what you're doing right now is weird. So in that moment, what my nervous system learned was that I should feel shameful, embarrassed, and weird about the fact that going to the beach, I wanted to read my book and not do the same things as the other kids. This was something undesirable and weird about me. And all these people were speaking out to tell me that I did not fit in and I was not receiving their approval. And so then what happens is I start to suppress that part of myself. When I would go out in social situations where previously maybe I'd brought my book, I would force myself to either not bring my book or read for way less time and try and force myself to participate in things that I didn't want to do, therefore suppressing and shaming that part of me that was my real self. And you can imagine that when we're talking about deeply traumatic experiences or chronic exposure to people shaming you, this shadow self, this suppressed part of you gets bigger and gets embedded deeper and deeper into your nervous system and your psyche. And often when we express anger, rage, grief, or sadness about these parts being suppressed, we are told that those emotions are not positive and we should not feel them, and that being angry is a sign of emotional immaturity or an undisciplined mind, which is all complete bullshit. So shadow work allows us to reclaim these parts of ourselves and to actually experience safety while having emotions like anger, grief, and rage, which are really, really important for healing. I have a full lesson breaking this down inside my Soma Love membership, and the lesson is already available.
Maybe for you there's a tomorrow.
So I bet you didn't know that shadow work was used for numerous things besides finding and healing from your trauma. So for those who are really scared to start, diving deep into your trauma, I got you. This is the video for you, okay? All right. So there are 4 things. There's a lot, but the 4 things I'm going to focus on is love. Not 4, actually. It's 3. I would focus on 4 because of trauma, but we're not talking about that today. So the 3 things we're going to be focused on is peace, gratitude, love, and expression. Now, if you have trouble expressing these 3 things, shadow work is going to be your best friend because it's going to help you understand why exactly you are scared to express your love, to show gratitude, and to be at peace. And I'm going to help you out by giving you guys 3 affirmations and 3 journal prompts to get you started, okay? All right. Here are a few affirmations you are going to say to yourself in order to start helping you tap into peace, expression, and happiness. And gratitude. I am the only one responsible for my happiness. I deserve to feel peace, love, happiness, and gratitude. I am not a villain for setting boundaries that protects me. Now we're going to move into journal prompts, okay? These are for my babies that like to journal. Now, you do not have to journal. You can just say whatever you want on your mind when it comes to you by doing a voice memo. But for those who need that, this is for you. This is for peace. Why does peace evades me? I hope I said that right. Am I afraid of being at peace? Why or why not? How would it feel to be in a constant state of peace? Here is gratitude. If I have trouble expressing gratitude, why do I have trouble expressing it? In what ways was not expressing my gratitude hindering my growth and success? And how can I express my gratitude moving forward? Now let's go to the last one. We're so close. We're almost done. Am I currently afraid of expressing love? Why or why not? Am I currently afraid of expressing my true self? Why or why not? What are my past experiences with both of these situations and how did it affect me to this day? And boom, answer those 3 questions from each of those little subjects and see how much things come up for you so you can start working through those babies. Now, if you need help on exactly how to do so, what shadow work is, do check out my Shadow Works for Beginner course that is a recording. And with this course comes a PDF file with 50 journal prompts on each section, as well as affirmations that's going to encourage you to continue on this journey. So yeah, that's it. And do this for me. Do this for me. Help me. Go in the comments and answer one of these journal prompts. And let me see it. Let me encourage you. All right.
So you're scrolling through spiritual TikTok and you keep seeing, are you doing your shadow work? Are you doing your shadow work? Do your shadow work. And you're like, how do I do my shadow work? I'm here to tell you. It's going to be a little bit difficult to get started on shadow work if you don't know what areas you need to work on. So the first thing you're going to want to do is identify your patterns. These are going to be individual to you. They're going to be the cycles that you notice are repeating in your life, whether you like them, whether you don't. You need to identify what cycles you want to continue in your life and what cycles you think you've had enough of. So some examples of some patterns that you might be exhibiting might be attracting emotionally unavailable partners, feeling like you have to people please, giving more to others rather than to yourself, feeling overwhelmed by your time management skills. Once you identify the pattern that you want to work on, I want you to think about what might you be neglecting in yourself or not seeing in yourself the situation, your environment, or the circumstance. Step 2, I want you to identify your triggers. Think of your triggers as clues. Your triggers are going to cue you into what needs adjustment in this situation or cycle. Third step, I want you to identify your projections. Think of your projections as how are you responding to your triggers. Projection is a coping mechanism in which an individual is displacing their own thoughts, emotions, and feelings onto another as if it is their own. Now that you know your projections, I want you to think, are these projections benefiting me and helping me work towards my desired outcome in the situation, or are they preventing me from moving forward? Once you identify these 3 things, it'll be much easier for you to find journal prompts and meditations and shadow work tools to help you work through these cycles, close them out, and welcome in new ones.
That's gonna get you killed, but pride's gonna be the death of you and you and me and you and you and you.
Realizing that no matter how much therapy, no matter how much somatic work or nervous system regulation you do, if you do not actually address the parts of yourself that have been so deeply suppressed and shamed, you're going to have to face the same lessons over and over and over again, and nothing's really going to change. And the way that you start addressing those parts is through doing shadow work.
I'm at the point where the most attractive thing to me is knowing that you have already, or you're currently trying to overcome your past relationship or childhood traumas. I want to know things like, are you going to leave when we get too close because it's triggering your avoidant attachment issues? I want to know that you're not going to start random arguments just to feel that same dopamine rush that you did in toxic relationships. I want to know that when we have a perfectly healthy relationship, you won't self-sabotage because you're not used to feeling safe and feeling peace in a relationship. The real question is, how are you working on yourself so you don't project any of that onto me? It's not your fault that any of it happened to you. It is on you to try to heal from it and not hurt other people in the process.
Just need time. Snapping 1, 2. Where are you?
7 days of shadow work.
Cause every time I see it, it's a different excuse why you can't be it. I don't wanna be it no more. Cause I feel like I'm wasting time being doing my
When you self-isolate and shut down and avoid everything when you're upset, this isn't because you just want to be alone. This is because your body is falling into a self-sabotaging cycle because you don't know how to handle the emotions that are coming up as a result of whatever has made you upset in your life. Avoiding feeling the emotions that are coming up within you is a learned behavior from childhood. This cycle is what keeps you stuck in life because you numb and avoid the real issue that's at hand, and you do something small like food, alcohol, social media, TV to bring you some short-term pleasure because you want to feel something good inside, so that short-term pleasure is what your body craves because that's all that it knows. And your body stays stuck in this pattern and you wonder why you're not happy in your life. And what you need to do is the emotion that comes up as a result of starting this cycle, you need to help yourself release that out of the body because that's the thing that's triggering.
This is so true. Whenever I see anybody's healing journey, very rarely do I ever hear them talk about shadow work. About a year ago, I was at the worst point of my life. I had just dropped out of law school and I had the worst anxiety and depression ever. Shadow work was pivotal in my healing journey, and I will share exactly the prompts that I used and also what shadow work even is. So I'm sure there's a million articles, TikToks, YouTube videos on shadow work that you should probably look at after this video. But my interpretation of it is we have our unconscious mind that can be severely impacted by painful memories, trauma, and experiences. Our unconscious mind also affects our personality, our thoughts, and our behaviors. Thus, a lot of us have this shadow or this part of us that we like to repress that ultimately ends up affecting who we are, but half the time we don't even address that part. So that's why shadow work is so important. And what I love about shadow work is it can be done with a therapist or you can do it at home. Now what I did is I went on Pinterest and I just typed in shadow work and it came up with a whole bunch of prompts, but I'll show you the one that I found to be the most helpful. So I'd recommend going ahead and screenshotting this. I tried to do one journal prompt a day every single day. I uncovered a lot about myself and it was so helpful towards the end of journaling all those things. I was so much more aware of why I act the way that I do, why I think the way that I do, why I do the things that I do. And once I was aware of those specific triggers, it was so much easier to navigate my healing journey. Nowadays, I do shadow work every now and then, but I picked up this journal. It's called Better Every Day by The Inside Out. It is Black woman owned too, but it reminds me a lot of the shadow work prompts that I did. This is just one example of it, like June 30th, what is something that others expect of you? This isn't sponsored, but that's just one of the tools that I use nowadays to keep up with the same essence of the shadow work that I did. Highly recommend going on YouTube and looking up more, but I hope that helps.
You don't self-isolate in your life because you like being alone. You're self-isolating because your body is falling into a trauma response. When your body gets too overwhelmed, it starts shutting down, and this is called hypoarousal, which is a trauma response. And then you spiral into coping mechanisms like watching 5 hours of Netflix or scrolling endlessly on social media or just totally binge eating or mindless eating. Those are coping mechanisms that are numbing you out. But this response is a symptom of an emotional wound, hence the term trauma response. To heal it, you need to calm your nervous system and do the inner work to release that wound.
Dejected, despondent, that you're ashamed of it. It's the part of you that you wish you were not, but you are, and not only that, you can't get rid of it.
To me, it's a 14-year-old boy who's very overweight and has acne and feels very undesirable to the world.
Okay, the question is, what do you do with that image in the present? That's something from the past, right? Talk to your shadow and ask him, how does he feel about you, how you've dealt with him, how you've treated him, and see what he answers.
He says, "You've denied my existence and felt shame at my mere existence."
Ask him how he feels about that.
Unbelievably hurt, angry, and upset.
Now listen very carefully. The shadow needs attention, but he needs the attention not from the world. He doesn't need an Academy Award. The only being whose attention matters to your shadow is you.
We getting fucked up tonight. We gon' fuck up tonight. See fire, at you see stars, at you elevate, at you meet God. I feel like falling in love.
Okay, I just left the record store and I overheard a conversation between two Gen Zers, and this is how it went. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not in a great place right now. I feel like I need to go home and just journal about it, really figure it out. Yeah, I think you should meditate on it. I was feeling so much better when I did my shadow work every single day and I was journaling and meditating, and now I'm only doing shadow work like once a week. Hey, once a week is still really good. Like, don't beat yourself up about it. You're still doing the work. It was the purest thing I've ever heard. And then, of course, after I checked out, I like lingered because I wanted to see what they looked like, and they're just like two, 18-year-old girls, and they like complimented the person who checked them out. And when they were asked like, oh, what did you get, they were like, oh, we don't know, we just like to walk around and pick out bands that we've never heard of before and just like experiment with exposing ourselves to new music that we normally wouldn't hear. So if you're worried about, Gen Z, I feel like you can just let them take the wheel. They know what they're doing.
You better believe that anger has an essential role in healing. The moment a person who's been traumatized goes from, why did this happen to me? Why didn't you protect me? From a powerless place to, you know what? Fuck that shit, I deserved better. And fuck you. That moment is magic.
Hey, now. Slow down, all right?
A very good friend of mine finally convinced me to get on TikTok. My name is Chris Roscoe. I'm a shadow integration specialist, and today I'm going to explain what the shadow actually is. So the shadow refers to the place in your mind where all the thoughts and the parts of your personality that you wish you didn't have and you push away, they end up in that place. That place is called the shadow. It hides outside of your awareness. And the only reason this is bad is because all the parts you put away are living things. They are part of you. So when you push them away, they still do things, except you don't know what they are anymore, and you can't really control them because you're choosing to be unaware of them. So this is where self-sabotage comes from. This is where a lot of psychological problems come from. The parts of yourself that you pushed away are still doing things from outside of your awareness. So shadow integration is pulling them back into your mind, integrating them, figuring out who they are, what purpose they were meant to serve, helping them serve that purpose, and ultimately becoming more healthy and whole and making your life a hell of a lot better. I'm Chris Orozco. There's going to be a lot more of these coming.
Okay, I need to say this. Healing is not becoming the best version of yourself. Healing is letting the worst version of yourself be loved.